Emma, are you even listening to me? The voice cut through the fog like a shard of glass. I looked up and there she was. Jessica Marshall, her perfectly blow-dried blonde hair cascading over her in tailor blazer. Her lips pressed into that familiar thin line of barely suppressed fury. She was holding a tablet, and her expression was one I knew better than my own reflection. The look she wore right before she destroyed someone's career. You need to take responsibility for this, Jessica said, tapping the screen. The Crawford account files are completely corrupted. The client presentation is in 3 hours, and I have a board meeting across town. There's no one else who can fix this mess. I blinked. The Crawford account. The corrupted files. The presentation that never happened because I had taken the blame. I had stood up in this very office, tears pricking at my eyes, and confessed to a mistake that wasn't mine. I had been so desperate to keep my job, to prove my loyalty to the firm, to avoid making waves. And Jessica had watched me fall. She had orchestrated the entire thing. That was the week I had been fired. That was the week my apartment lease was up, and I had to move back in with my parents in Ohio. That was the week my fiancé, Mark, decided that my professional instability was a deal-breaker. That was the week my life, which I had built brick by brick with student loans and sleepless nights, came crumbling down around my ears. And then the cancer diagnosis. Stage 3 discovered too late. I had spent my final months in a hospital room, staring at the ceiling, replaying every decision that had led me to that lonely, bitter end. I should have said no. I should have stood up for myself. I should have let Jessica burn in the hellfire she had created. Now I was sitting in my old cubicle, 3 years younger, with a second chance I hadn't asked for in a rage so cold it felt like ice in my veins. Emma, Jessica said, her voice sharpening. I'm talking to you. No. The word came out like a gunshot, louder than I had intended. A few heads swiveled in the open plan office. Sarah from accounts, who always brought in stale donuts on Fridays, looked up from her monitor. Tom from IT, who had a crush on me that I had never acknowledged, paused mid-sip of his energy drink. Jessica blinked. Excuse me. I said no. I stood up, shoving my chair back. The movement was automatic, fluid, nothing like the trembling, apologetic woman I had been in my past life. I'm not taking the blame for your screw-up, Jessica. Not now, not ever. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Jessica's face flickered through several expressions, surprise, disbelief, and then that familiar, ugly anger. Lower your voice, she hissed, stepping closer. This is a professional workplace. If you have something to say to me, we can discuss it in my office. Privately. I have nothing to say to you in private. I reached for my bag, slinging it over my shoulder. The weight of it felt grounding, real. You know what I find interesting? The Crawford account files were fine yesterday morning. You were the last person in the system. You were the one who sent the email canceling the client meeting, citing technical difficulties. Jessica's nostrils flared. I don't know what kind of game you're playing, Emma, but it's not a game. I took a step closer to her, and for the first time I saw something flicker in her eyes. Fear. It was brief, a momentary crack in the armor, but I saw it. You have 3 hours until the presentation. You can either admit to the board that you made a mistake again, or you can try to pin it on someone else. But that someone else isn't going to be me. I had never spoken to Jessica like this. I had never dared. She was the senior account executive, the one with the corner office and the black card and the connections that could make or break a career. I was just a junior strategist, the girl who came in early and stayed late and never complained. But I had died. And death had a way of recalibrating priorities. Everyone back to work, Jessica snapped, her composure fracturing. She grabbed my arm, her manicured nails digging into my skin. Emma, we need to talk. Now. Let go of me. Emma. I said let go. I pulled my arm free, and Jessica stumbled back a step. Her heel caught on the edge of a power cord, and she went down hard, her tablet clattering across the carpet. The crash echoed through the suddenly quiet office, and I watched her scramble to pick up the pieces of her dignity. And not one person moved to help her. That was the moment I realized something I had missed in my first life. Everyone knew. Every single person in that office knew that Jessica was a liar. A cheat, a manipulator. They had all seen her climb the corporate ladder on the backs of her subordinates. But no one had ever said anything because no one wanted to be the next victim. I had been the next victim, and they had all watched. But I was different now. I wasn't going to be anyone's scapegoat. I wasn't going to shrivel up and apologize for things that weren't my fault. And I certainly wasn't going to let Jessica Marshall destroy my future while the rest of this office pretended they didn't see it. Here's what's going to happen, I said, my voice carrying across the room. I'm going to walk out of this building, and I'm going to file a formal complaint with HR about the hostile work environment and the attempted sabotage of my professional reputation. And then I'm going to have a conversation with the Crawford account about their corrupted files and how the senior account executive handled it. You can't do that. Jessica was on her feet now, her face flushed red. You don't have any proof. I don't need proof, I said. I just need to make some phone calls. And I know exactly who to call. I walked toward the exit, past the rows of cubicles where my former colleagues were pretending to work. Sarah's eyes met mine for a split second. And I saw something there that hadn't been there before. Respect. Maybe a little awe. But the best part was the silence. No one stopped me. No one defended Jessica. No one told me I was overreacting. I stepped into the elevator and watched the doors slide shut. The moment they closed, my legs gave out. I slumped against the mirrored wall, hyperventilating. My heart was racing so fast I could feel it in my throat. My hands were shaking. What had I just done? I had just publicly humiliated a senior executive. I had threatened to go to HR. I had burned a bridge I couldn't afford to burn. But then I remembered the hospital room, the sterile smell of disinfectant, the beeping of the machines that marked the final seconds of my life, the loneliness of dying alone with no one to hold my hand, because I had wasted all my time and energy trying to please people who didn't care if I lived or died. That memory was worth more than any reference letter. The elevator dinged at the ground floor, and I stepped out into the lobby. The receptionist, Marcy, a woman in her 50s who had always been kind to me, gave me a curious look. Leaving early, Emma? Probably permanently, I said, managing a smile that felt more genuine than I expected. But you know what, Marcy, it feels kind of great. Marcy chuckled, shaking her head. You know, honey, I've been here for 15 years. And I've never seen anyone walk out of this building with that look on their face. Whatever you've got going on, I hope it works out for you. Me too, I said. That I pushed through the revolving doors and stepped out into the Denver sunshine. The air smelled like exhaust and pine, and the mountains loomed on the horizon like promises. I breathed it all in and felt something that had been absent for a very long time. Hope that I walked down the street without any destination in mind, just letting my feet carry me. The Starbucks on the corner was still there, and I bought myself a lavender oat latte just because I could. In my past life, I would have skipped the indulgence, too worried about the calories and the cost and the judgment of my coworkers. Now I didn't care. I sat on a bench in the small park across the street, watching office workers stream past on their lunch breaks. Phones pressed to their ears, faces pinched with stress. That had been me once. That could be me again if I let it. But I wouldn't let it. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts. There were names here that I hadn't thought about in years. People who had been my friends before I isolated myself, before I became the office doormat, before I stopped returning calls because I was too ashamed of my failures. My thumb hovered over the name I had been dreading to contact. Mark. My fiancé. The man who had proposed to me 2 years from now, and who had left me 5 months after that, when I needed him most. But right now Mark was still my boyfriend. He didn't know about the cancer. He didn't know about the firing. He didn't know that I was a ticking time bomb of bad decisions and rotten luck. I couldn't tell him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. The memory of his cold eyes, his voice flat with disappointment, his casual dismissal of everything we had built together. That wound was still too fresh. Instead, I called my sister. Amy, hey, it's Emma. Emma, is everything okay? You never called during the day. Everything's fine, I said, and it felt like a lie and a truth all at once. I just needed to hear your voice. And to tell you something. Tell me, what, are you okay? Did something happen? I quit my job, I said. The words came out easier than I expected. Or I got fired. Technically, I resigned. It's a long story, but I'm not working at Bullseye anymore. There was a pause on the other end of the line. I could practically hear Amy processing, her analytical mind clicking through the implications. Good, she said finally. Good. Emma, I've been telling you for 2 years that that place was toxic. You were miserable. You weren't sleeping. You were losing weight. And for what? For some middle management lackey who couldn't even spell your name right? I laughed. It was a wet, slightly hysterical laugh, and I saw a woman walking her dog give me a strange look. But I didn't care. I love you, Amy. I love you too, you idiot. Now tell me everything. And I mean everything. Don't leave out a single detail. So I did. I told her about Jessica and the Crawford account and the corrupted files. I told her about my outburst in the office and the look on Jessica's face when she fell. I even told her about the hospital room and the dying alone, although I framed it as a hypothetical nightmare scenario that had inspired me to change my life. Amy listened without interrupting, and by the time I was done, I felt lighter than I had in years. Emma, I'm going to say something, Amy said. And you're not going to like it. Hit me. You need to make that HR complaint. Today. Before Jessica can spin this into you being the problem. You need to document everything, and you need to get other people to back you up. I don't think anyone will. Someone will. You'd be surprised what people are willing to do when they feel like someone else is finally taking a stand. She was right. Of course she was right. Amy had always been the practical one, the one who could see through bullshit and get straight to the heart of the matter. Okay, I said. I'll do it. Promise me. I promise. I ended the call and sat there for a long moment, staring at my phone. The screen had a small crack in the corner, the result of a drop I had never gotten around to fixing. I had been so afraid of minor imperfections, so obsessed with projecting an image of flawless competence, that I had missed the bigger picture. I wasn't flawless. I was a mess of cracks and broken pieces. But I was still standing. And that was enough. I opened the browser on my phone and started searching. The Crawford account was a mid-sized manufacturing company in the suburbs. I didn't have a direct contact, but I knew someone who did. A junior account manager named Lisa, who had been at the firm for just over a year. She and I had bonded over our shared hatred of Jessica's PowerPoints. And she had confided in me once that she was looking for a way out. Lisa answered on the second ring. Hey Emma. What's up? I was just about to head into the worst meeting of my life. The Crawford presentation. How did you know? Because I just had the worst argument of my life with Jessica about the corrupted files, I said. And I need to ask you a favor. But first, you need to promise me you'll hear me out.
Okay. I'm listening.
Jessica tried to blame me for the corruption, but I know she did it herself. She's been trying to cover her tracks for weeks, and today she went too far. I quit. Or I resigned. But I'm going to file a complaint with HR. And I'm going to take this to the client if I have to. And I need someone on the inside who can corroborate what I'm about to tell them. There was a long pause on Lisa's end. I could hear the faint sound of office chatter in the background. You're serious, Lisa said, dead serious. Emma, you know what happens to people who cross Jessica. She'll destroy you. She'll sue you for defamation. She'll try, I said. But she won't succeed. Not this time. I didn't know how I was so certain. But I was. The confidence was burning in my chest like a wildfire. And I wasn't going to let anyone extinguish it. Lisa let out a shaky breath. What do you need me to do? I need you to save any emails you've exchanged with Jessica about the Crawford account. I need you to document any times you saw her access the files. And I need you to be ready to talk to HR if they call you. Okay, Lisa said. Okay, I can do that. But Emma, are you sure about this? This could blow up in your face. Let it blow up, I said. I'm not afraid of the explosion. I ended the call and felt a surge of energy that was almost dizzying. I was doing it. I was fighting back. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't apologizing for it. The afternoon sun was warm on my face, and I leaned back on the bench, closing my eyes. I could feel the weight of my past pressing down on me. The memories of all the times I had stayed silent. All the times I had swallowed my anger and smiled through the pain. But that was the old Emma. And the old Emma was dead. This was the new Emma. The one who said no. The one who refused to take the blame. The one who understood that sometimes, The only way to survive was to fight. I opened my eyes and looked at the sky. The clouds were drifting lazily, and the mountains stood guard over the city. It was a beautiful day, full of possibilities. I had no idea what was coming next. But for the first time in a very long time, I was ready to face it. The HR complaint process was more bureaucratic than I remembered. Or maybe I had just been too intimidated to notice before. I spent the next 3 days in a flurry of emails, phone calls, and meetings with a woman named Teresa from HR, who had the kind of dead-eyed neutrality that made me suspect she had seen it all, and was no longer surprised by anything. But Teresa listened. She took notes. She asked pointed questions about dates and times and specific language used in emails. "Let me be clear, Ms. Cole," Teresa said, closing her notebook with a crisp snap. "What you're alleging is serious. If we find evidence of misconduct, there will be consequences for Ms. Marshall. But I have to warn you, if your claims are proven to be unfounded, there could be repercussions for you as well." "I understand," I said. "But I'm not making this up. I have witnesses. I have documentation. And I have nothing to lose." I didn't tell her about the cancer. I didn't tell her that I had already died once, and that the experience had stripped away all my fear of professional consequences. She wouldn't have understood anyway. The investigation dragged on. Meanwhile, I found myself with too much time on my hands and too much energy coiled in my chest. I started walking. Every morning, I would leave my tiny apartment and just walk through the streets of Denver, past the coffee shops and the boutiques and the homeless people begging for change. I thought about my past life a lot. Not with regret exactly, but with a strange sense of detachment. It had happened to someone else, someone who was barely recognizable to me now. That Emma had been so afraid of being disliked, so desperate for approval, that she had let herself be erased. This Emma was different. This Emma was hungry. On the 4th day after my resignation, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something told me to answer. "Is this Emma Cole?" "Speaking." "This is Diane Crawford from Crawford Manufacturing. I'm the CEO of the company that your former firm was handling our account. I'm calling because I heard some interesting things about a presentation that was supposed to happen." My heart rate spiked, but I kept my voice calm. "Hello, Ms. Crawford. I'm glad you called. Please call me Diane. Your name came up in a conversation I had with one of my junior staff. She mentioned that you were the one who was supposed to present our account. But then there was some kind of incident. And you resigned." "That's correct. Would you be willing to tell me your side of the story? I'm trying to decide whether to retain Bullseye as our agency of record, and frankly, I'm not happy with the way things have been handled." I took a breath. This was it. This was the opening I had been waiting for. "I'd be happy to tell you everything," I said. "But I want to be clear. I'm not trying to trash my former employer. I just want to tell you the truth. Is that okay? Truth is exactly what I'm looking for." We arranged a meeting at a coffee shop near her office the next day. I spent the evening preparing, going over every detail I could remember, pulling together the documentation I had saved. The next morning, I walked into the coffee shop with my head held high and my heart pounding in my chest. Diane Crawford was a woman in her early 60s with iron gray hair, and the kind of no-nonsense demeanor that suggested she had been running this business for decades. She was on her phone when I approached, but she hung up immediately and extended her hand. "Emma, thank you for meeting me. I know this must be awkward." "Awkward is kind of my new normal," I said. Shaking her hand out, we sat down, and I ordered a coffee that I had no intention of drinking. My hands were shaking too much to hold a cup. "Tell me about the account," Diane said. "Tell me what happened." I told her. I left out the parts about Jessica's personal vendetta against me, focusing instead on the operational issues. The corrupted files, the lack of accountability, the blame shifting. I showed her the emails I had saved, the timestamps that contradicted Jessica's story. Diane listened quietly, her expression unreadable. When I was finished, she sat back and took a long sip of her espresso. "That's quite a story," she said. "It's the truth." "I believe you." She set down her cup. "I've been in business for 30 years. I know a dysfunctional culture when I see one. And I've been getting bad vibes from Bullseye for months. The account manager they assigned to us, Jessica, never seemed to have a clear handle on things. She'd promise one thing and deliver another. She has a habit of doing that. I can see that. Diane studied me for a moment. I also see that you're not the kind of person who just walks away from a problem. You stayed. You fought. You tried to do the right thing. I tried. That's more than most people do. Diane reached into her bag and pulled out a business card. I'm looking for a new account strategist, someone who can manage my company's marketing in-house. It's not a huge firm, but it's growing. And it comes with a lot of autonomy and a decent salary. If you're interested, I'd like you to come in for an interview. I stared at the card in my hand, feeling like the universe had just thrown me a rope and I was too stunned to grab it. You're offering me a job. I'm offering you an interview. I need to make sure you're the right fit. But I have a good feeling about you. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. I'll think about it, I said. Thank you, Diane. This means more than you know. I think I have an idea, she said with a slight smile. Good luck with everything. She left, and I sat there for a long time, staring at the business card. Crawford Manufacturing. In-house strategist. The salary she had mentioned was more than I had been making at Bullseye, and the autonomy was worth more than anything. But I couldn't get too excited yet. There was still the HR investigation, still Jessica's inevitable retaliation, still all the uncertainty that came with starting over. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Sarah, the woman from accounts who had been in the office during my confrontation. Hey Emma, you're not going to believe what just happened. Jessica got put on administrative leave. The HR investigation is moving faster than anyone expected. Some of us got called in for interviews. I stared at the screen, processing the news. Did she say anything? I typed back, she's claiming you're lying. That you're just bitter because she caught you in a mistake. But no one is buying it. Everyone saw the way she treated you. Everyone knows she's been covering her own ass for years. I felt a surge of something that was almost like satisfaction. It was petty, I knew, but I couldn't help it. Thanks for telling me. I replied, no problem. I really hope things work out for you. You deserve better. I pocketed my phone and walked out of the coffee shop. The sun was high in the sky, and the city was buzzing with the energy of a typical weekday. I had no job, no real plan, and no guarantee that any of this would work out. But I also had no cancer, no lonely hospital room, no regrets about the things I hadn't said. I had a second chance, and I wasn't going to waste it. That evening, I called Mark. He answered on the second ring, his voice full of the familiar warmth that I had missed more than I wanted to admit. Hey babe, how was work? I quit my job, I said. Silence. I could almost hear the gears turning in his head, the calculations, the assessments of risk. You quit without talking to me. It happened kind of fast. There was this whole thing with my boss, and I couldn't do it anymore. Emma, you can't just quit your job. What about our plans? What about the wedding? We're supposed to be saving for a house. We can figure it out, I said. I have options. I have a lead on a new job that could be even better. Better. You were at Bullseye for 3 years. You were on track for a promotion. I was on track for a mental breakdown, I said. Mark, I'm not asking you to understand. I'm just asking you to support me. He sighed, and I could hear the frustration in the sound. I'm trying to support you, but you keep making these decisions without me, and I don't know if I can. Can what? I don't know. I just need some time to think. I felt my stomach drop. This was it. This was where it started, the slow unraveling of everything we had built. In my past life, I had tried to hold on, had begged and pleaded and shrunk myself to fit into the mold he wanted. This time I wasn't going to beg. Okay, I said. Take all the time you need. But I want you to know something. I'm not going to be the person who sacrifices everything for someone else's plan anymore. Not even yours. Emma. Goodbye, Mark. I hung up before he could respond. The tears came then, hot and fast, streaming down my cheeks. I hated him for making me cry. I hated myself for still caring. But underneath the pain, there was a core of steel that hadn't been there before. I had survived death. I could survive this. The next morning, I woke up with a sense of purpose that I hadn't felt in years. I showered, dressed in my best interview outfit, and took the bus to Crawford Manufacturing. The building was a modest office complex in a business park, but the inside was surprisingly modern, with an open floor plan and a lot of natural light. Diane greeted me at the reception desk and walked me through the office, introducing me to the team. This is Jenna, our senior designer. This is Tomas, our content specialist. And this is Maria, our account manager. Everyone was friendly, welcoming, nothing like the toxic culture I had left behind. I felt a spark of hope that this could be a real fresh start. The interview itself was more of a conversation than an interrogation. Diane asked about my experience, my strengths, my weaknesses. She asked about the bullseye situation, and I told her the truth without being melodramatic. You're a survivor, Diane said at the end of the interview. I admire that. Thank you. I'm going to be honest with you. This job is going to be challenging. We're small, so everyone wears a lot of hats. But I think you have the skills to handle it. And I think you have the right attitude. Does that mean? It means I'm offering you the position. She extended her hand. Can you start next Monday? I shook her hand, feeling tears prick at my eyes again. Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Don't thank me yet. You haven't seen the amount of paperwork I'm going to make you do. I laughed, and it felt like the first genuine laugh I had had in years. When I walked out of the building, I was holding a formal offer letter and my head was spinning. I had a job. I had a purpose. I had a way forward that didn't involve apologizing for things that weren't my fault. But I also knew that this wasn't over. Jessica was still out there, still angry, still powerful. And I had made an enemy of her in a way that I couldn't undo. That the thought should have scared me. Maybe it did, a little. But mostly I felt ready. Bring it on, I thought. I've already survived the worst thing that's ever going to happen to me. I spent the rest of the week preparing for my new role. Reading up on Crawford Manufacturing's history, their product lines, their market position. It was a family-owned business that had been around for over 40 years, and they were in the middle of a transition, trying to modernize their brand while staying true to their roots. It was exactly the kind of challenge I had been craving. Something real, something meaningful, something that had nothing to do with Jessica Marshall or her petty power games. On Friday, I got another call from Teresa at HR. Ms. Cole, I wanted to give you an update. The investigation is progressing. We've interviewed several witnesses, and the evidence against Ms. Marshall is substantial. However, she has retained legal counsel and is contesting the findings. I expected that, I said. We may need you to provide additional testimony in the coming weeks. Will you be available? I'll make myself available. Whatever you need. Thank you. And Ms. Cole, I want to commend you for your courage in coming forward. It's not easy to stand up to someone like Ms. Marshall, especially when the power dynamics are so skewed. I'm just doing what's right, I said, but as I hung up, I felt the weight of what I had done pressing down on me. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about all the people Jessica had hurt, all the careers she had derailed, all the lives she had made miserable. I had become the voice for all of them, and I couldn't let them down. That Saturday morning, I woke up to a knock on my door. I opened it to find Mark standing there, holding a bouquet of sunflowers. His face was pale, his eyes red-rimmed, and he looked like he hadn't slept in days. I'm sorry, he said. I'm so sorry, Emma. I was an idiot. I was scared and selfish and I took it out on you. But I want to fix it. I want to fix us. I took the flowers, feeling the weight of them in my hands. They were beautiful, vibrant, full of life. And they reminded me of the sunflowers my mother used to grow in our backyard, tall and sturdy, always turning toward the light. Come in. I said that we sat on my couch, and he talked. He talked about his fears, his insecurities, his desperate need to control things because he felt like he was losing control of everything else. He talked about his mother's cancer, the way she had withered away, and how the thought of losing me too had sent him into a spiral of panic. I listened. I didn't interrupt. I just let him pour it all out. I'm not the same person I was, I said when he was done. I'm not going to be the person who sacrifices everything for your comfort. I'm not going to be quiet and agreeable and easy to manage. I'm going to fight. I'm going to speak up. And sometimes I'm going to make you uncomfortable. He reached for my hand. I know. And that's okay. That's what I want. I want the real you, not the watered-down version. I looked at him, this man who had broken my heart once before. But he was different now. Or maybe I was different. Maybe we both were. I can't promise you a perfect future, I said. I can't promise you stability or predictability. But I can promise you this. If we do this, we do it together. Equals. No one in charge, no one in the passenger seat. Deal, he said. And for the first time, I felt like we might actually have a chance. But the happiness was short-lived. That night, I got an email from an anonymous address. The subject line was simple. You should see this. The attachment was a screenshot of a private message between Jessica and someone else, someone who had access to my medical records. The message was brief, but it sent a chill down my spine. She's sick. I got confirmation from a contact at her old doctor's office. Stage 3. If she doesn't get treatment, she's dead in 2 years. We can use this. I stared at the screen, my blood running cold. Jessica knew. She knew about my past life, my diagnosis, my death. And she was planning to use it against me. But how did she know, and what did she plan to do with that information? I didn't have answers, but I knew one thing for certain. The war with Jessica Marshall was just beginning. And this time, the stakes were higher than I could have ever imagined. The next week was a blur of paperwork, onboarding, and learning the ropes at Crawford Manufacturing. I threw myself into the work with a desperation that surprised even me. Every task, no matter how mundane, felt like a lifeline, something to hold on to while the rest of my life was in flux. And it was in flux. Mark and I hadn't spoken since our reconciliation. But the silence between us felt different now, less like a wall and more like a door that was slowly creaking open. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for him to revert to the man who had abandoned me in my past life. But he didn't. He called every night, texted throughout the day, and sent me little reminders that he was thinking of me. It was disorienting, but it was also nice. I was in the middle of a team meeting when my phone buzzed. I glanced at the screen and felt my stomach drop. It was Jessica. I excused myself from the meeting, stepped into the hallway, and answered, "Hello, Jessica." "Don't hello me, you backstabbing little bitch." Her voice was cold, controlled, but there was a tremor underneath that betrayed her anger. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I think I have a pretty good idea. You destroyed my career, my reputation, everything I've worked for." "Correction," I said. "You destroyed your own career. I just didn't take the blame for it." I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, ragged and heavy. "You think this is funny? You think you've won?" "I don't think anything's funny. And I don't think I've won. I think I've just started fighting." "Listen to me, Emma. I have connections in this city. I have friends in places you can't even imagine. I can make your life a living hell. I can." "Jessica, stop." I cut her off, my voice sharp. "Do you hear yourself? This is pathetic. You're pathetic. You've spent your whole life climbing over people. And now that someone has finally climbed over you, you don't know what to do. I'm warning you. And no, I'm warning you. If you try to come after me, I will fight back. And this time I'll win. Do you understand?" There was a long pause. I could almost hear her trying to find a response. Something cutting, something devastating. "You'll regret this," she said finally. "You'll regret everything." And then she hung up. I stood there in the hallway, my heart pounding, my hands shaking. That had been a mistake. I had let my anger get the better of me, had provoked her when I should have just hung up. But I couldn't take it back. And honestly, I didn't want to. I went back to the meeting, and the rest of the day passed in a haze. When I got home, I was exhausted, mentally and physically. And then I saw Mark. He was standing outside my apartment building, hands in his pockets, looking at the ground. When he looked up and saw me, his face shifted through several expressions: guilt, relief, something that might have been love. "Emma, I'm sorry," he said, stepping toward me. "I shouldn't have hung up. I shouldn't have said any of those things. I was scared, and I took it out on you." "Scared of what?" "Scared that you were changing. That I didn't know who you were anymore." "Mark, I am changing. But that's not a bad thing. I was drowning at bullseye, and you didn't even notice. You were so focused on the wedding and the house and the perfect future that you didn't see I was falling apart. He flinched like I had slapped him. I'm sorry. I know I failed you. But I want to make it right. I want to be better. I looked at him, this man I had loved for 5 years. This man who had abandoned me in my past life when I needed him most. He was standing in front of me now, saying all the right things, making all the right promises. But I couldn't forget. The hospital room, the loneliness, the cold emptiness of dying alone. Those memories were seared into my soul. I need some time, I said. I need to figure out who I am, what I want. And I need to do it without you. Emma, please, Mark. Just give me space. He nodded, his expression crumpled. Okay, whatever you need. He walked away, and I watched him go. A part of me wanted to call him back, to fall into his arms and pretend everything was okay. But that part was the old Emma, and she was dead. I went inside and sat on my couch, staring at the walls. My apartment was small, cluttered, nothing like the spacious home I had imagined for Mark and me. But it was mine. It was the first place I had ever truly owned, with my name on the lease and my furniture and my rules. I felt a strange sense of peace settle over me. I didn't know what was going to happen next. But I knew I was going to be okay. The next morning, I got a call from Teresa at HR. Ms. Cole, I have some news. The investigation into Ms. Marshall is complete. We found substantial evidence to support your claims. She has been terminated from her position, and we are issuing a formal statement to the company. I closed my eyes, letting the words wash over me. Thank you for letting me know. There's more, Teresa said. Ms. Marshall is contesting the termination. She's hired a lawyer. She's claiming that you and other employees conspired against her. I didn't conspire against anyone. I just told the truth. I believe you, but I wanted to warn you. This could get messy. She's going to try to drag you through the mud. I'm used to it. I ended the call and sat there for a long moment. So Jessica was fighting back. I had expected that. But the news still sent a chill down my spine. This was going to be a war. And I needed to be prepared. I started making a list of everything I had documented. Emails, texts, timestamps. Witnesses who could corroborate my claims. Anything that could be used as evidence. I called Lisa, who confirmed that she had already been interviewed by HR and had submitted all the evidence she had. She's going to try to discredit us, Lisa said. She's going to say we're all bitter, disgruntled employees who had it out for her. Let her try. The evidence doesn't lie. But I knew that evidence wasn't always enough. I had seen Jessica manipulate her way out of worse situations. She was cunning, ruthless, and utterly without conscience. And I had no idea what she might do next. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. I threw myself into my new job, proving myself to Diane and the rest of the team. I had late nights and early mornings and more coffee than any human being should consume. But I also had purpose. For the first time in my life, I was building something that was entirely my own. Crawford Manufacturing wasn't perfect, but it was a place where my contributions were valued and my opinions mattered. And then Mark called. I'm not going to give up on us, he said. I know you need space, but I need to tell you something. I've been seeing a therapist. I'm trying to work through my issues. That's great, Mark. I really mean that. I'm doing it for me. But I'm also doing it for you. For us. Because I believe we can still make this work. Mark. Just think about it. Please. I'll wait as long as it takes. I hung up feeling conflicted. Part of me was proud of him for taking that step. Part of me was still too angry to forgive him. But another part of me, the part that still loved him, wanted to believe. That weekend I went to visit my sister Amy. She lived in a small town outside of Denver, and we spent the afternoon drinking wine on her porch and watching the sun set over the mountains. You seem different, Amy said. Better. More yourself. I'm trying, I said. I don't know if I'm doing it right. But I'm trying. Trying is all anyone can do. Amy took a sip of her wine. So what's the deal with Mark? Are you going to take him back? I don't know. Part of me wants to, but part of me is still too hurt. And that's okay. You don't have to decide right now. You have time. I thought about my past life, all the time I hadn't had. The cancer had robbed me of so many possibilities, so many choices. But this time I had time. I had a future. And I wasn't going to waste it. The next week, I was in my office at Crawford Manufacturing when I received an unexpected visitor. Diane walked in with a grave expression on her face. "Emma, we need to talk." I felt my stomach knot. "What's going on?" "I just got a call from our legal team. Jessica Marshall has filed a defamation lawsuit against you. She's claiming that you maliciously spread false information about her to HR and to me, and that you cost her her job and her reputation." The room spun for a moment. I gripped the edge of my desk to steady myself. "That's ridiculous. Everything I said was true." "I know. But she's hired a very aggressive lawyer. And she's threatening to drag this out for years if she has to. She's also made some veiled threats about your personal life. Medical records, she said. Something about a pre-existing condition." My blood ran cold. She was going there. She was actually going to use my past diagnosis against me. But she didn't know that the timeline was wrong, that in this life I was healthy. I had been given a clean bill of health at my last checkup. The cancer hadn't even started yet. How could she prove something that hadn't happened? But the accusation alone would be damaging. It would cast doubt on my credibility, make me look like I was trying to cover up something. It could derail everything I had worked for. Emma Diane's voice pulled me back to the present. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said, forcing my voice to steady. "She's bluffing. She doesn't have any proof. She doesn't need proof to cause damage. A lawsuit like this can drag on for years. It can drain your finances, your energy, your reputation. Are you sure you want to fight this?" "I don't have a choice," I said. "If I back down now, she wins. And I can't let that happen." Diane studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. "All right. We'll stand by you. Crawford Manufacturing will cover your legal fees. We believe in you, Emma. And we won't let her bully you into submission." I felt tears prick at my eyes. "Thank you. I don't know what to say." "Say you'll fight," Diane said. "Say you won't let her win." "I won't," I said. "I promise." The legal battle consumed the next several months. I spent countless hours with lawyers, reviewing documents, preparing for depositions. Jessica's lawyers threw everything they could at me, trying to find cracks in my story. They subpoenaed my medical records, but there was nothing there to incriminate me. I was healthy. I had always been healthy. The cancer that had killed me in my past life didn't exist in this timeline. But Jessica was relentless. She leaked stories to the press, painting me as a bitter, unstable woman who had lied her way into a new job. She even tried to contact Mark, hoping to turn him against me. But Mark stood by me. He came to every court hearing, sat in the back row, and held my hand when I felt like I was going to fall apart. "I'm proud of you," he told me one night. "You're fighting for yourself. That's not something I could have done a year ago. But I'm learning." "I'm learning too," I said. "We both are." The trial finally came. It was a closed hearing, not a public spectacle, but it felt like the whole world was watching. I sat in the witness box, my heart pounding, and told my story. I told them about the corrupted files. I told them about Jessica's pattern of blame shifting and intimidation. I told them about the toxic culture she had created, and how she had made my life a living hell. Jessica's lawyer cross-examined me for hours, trying to trip me up, trying to make me look like a liar. But I stayed calm. I stuck to the facts. And when it was all over, the judge ruled in my favor. Jessica's lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice. She was ordered to pay my legal fees. I walked out of the courthouse with a lightness in my step that I hadn't felt in years. Mark was waiting for me, and he pulled me into a hug so tight I could barely breathe. "You did it," he said. "You actually did it." "I did," I said. "We did." But the victory felt hollow, because even though I had won the legal battle, Jessica was still out there. She had lost her job, her reputation, her credibility, but she hadn't lost her anger. And I knew she wasn't done with me yet. That night, I got another anonymous email. This time, there was no message, just an attachment. A photograph. It was a picture of me, taken from across the street, outside my apartment building. I was laughing, holding Mark's hand. And on the back of the photo, someone had written in red ink, "You can run, but you can't hide." I stared at the image, my hands trembling. She was watching me. She was stalking me. And she wanted me to know it. I called the police. I filed a report. But without more evidence, there wasn't much they could do. I was on my own. But I wasn't afraid. Not anymore. I had faced death. I had faced Jessica. And I had come out the other side. Whatever she threw at me next, I would be ready. The legal battle with Jessica dragged on for months. She had hired a high-priced lawyer and was throwing everything she had at us. She claimed she had been set up, that the corrupted files were part of a scheme to oust her from her position. She even tried to claim that I had planted the evidence against her. It was absurd. It was exhausting. And it was expensive. But I had Diane and the rest of the team at Crawford Manufacturing backing me. They covered my legal fees, provided character references, and even sat through depositions. "We believe in you, Emma," Diane said during one particularly stressful week. "You're one of us now. And we don't abandon our own." Those words meant more to me than she could ever know. In my past life, I had been alone. I had faced the cancer, the firing, the breakup, all of it by myself. But this time, I had people in my corner. I had a support system. And that made all the difference. That the trial itself was a grueling affair. Jessica's lawyer was a bulldog. A man named Robert Thornton who had a reputation for destroying witnesses on the stand. He grilled me for hours, trying to poke holes in my story, trying to make me seem like a bitter, vindictive woman who had fabricated everything out of jealousy. "Isn't it true, Ms. Cole, that you were passed over for a promotion that went to Ms. Marshall?" he asked, his voice dripping with false concern. "Isn't it true that you harbored a grudge against her for years?" "I never wanted her job," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I just wanted to do my job without being blamed for her mistakes. And yet you chose to humiliate her in front of the entire office. You chose to file a complaint with HR. You chose to contact her client directly. That sounds like a grudge to me." "That sounds like self-defense," I said. "I had a right to protect my reputation. She had a right to face the consequences of her actions." The courtroom was silent. I could feel the judge's eyes on me, assessing me. I held my ground. I had nothing to hide. The turning point came when Lisa took the stand. She was nervous, her hands shaking, but she spoke with a clarity that surprised me. She told the court about the email she had saved, the timestamps that contradicted Jessica's story, the pattern of behavior that had gone on for years. "She made our lives miserable," Lisa said. "She threatened us. She manipulated us. And she always found someone else to blame. Emma was just the latest in a long line of scapegoats." Jessica's lawyer tried to discredit Lisa, but she stood firm. And when she stepped down from the stand, I saw something in Jessica's eyes that I had never seen before. Fear. Real genuine fear. The verdict came 3 days later. The judge ruled in my favor. Jessica's lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, and she was ordered to pay all court costs and legal fees. I sat in the courtroom, my hands clasped in my lap, and listened as the judge read the decision. When it was over, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. It was over. It was finally over. But the aftermath was complicated. Jessica was devastated. She had lost everything. Her job, her reputation, her savings. And she had no one to blame but herself. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. A few weeks after the trial, I got a letter from her. It was handwritten on expensive stationery, and it was full of vitriol and bitterness. "You think you've won," she wrote. "But you haven't. You've just proven that you're just as ruthless as I am. You destroyed me to save yourself. And that makes you no better than me." I read the letter twice, then folded it and put it away. She was wrong. I hadn't destroyed her to save myself. I had simply refused to let her destroy me. There was a difference. And if she couldn't see that, then she was beyond help. Mark was waiting for me when I got home that evening. He had cooked dinner, something he rarely did, and the apartment smelled like garlic and rosemary. "I figured we should celebrate," he said, kissing my forehead. "You deserve it." "I don't know about celebrate," I said. "But I'm grateful it's over." "It's not over," he said quietly. "It's just beginning. The rest of our lives. Together." I looked at him, this man who had broken my heart once before. But he was different now. He had gone to therapy. He had worked on his issues. He had shown up when it mattered. And I realized that I had changed too. I wasn't the same woman who had begged him to stay in my past life. I was stronger, more independent, more certain of what I wanted. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "I'm thinking that I love you," I said. "But I'm also thinking that I need to be my own person. I need to build my own life, my own career, my own identity. And I need to know that you'll support me in that." "I will," he said. "I promise. No more control. No more fear. Just us, figuring it out together." I reached for his hand and squeezed it. "Okay, let's figure it out." The months that followed were quiet. Peaceful even. I continued working at Crawford Manufacturing, and I loved every minute of it. The work was challenging, the team was supportive, and Diane had become something of a mentor to me. I was learning, growing, and building something that was entirely my own. That I also started seeing a therapist. I had been through so much. The death, the rebirth, the trauma of Jessica's manipulation. And I needed to process it all. The sessions were hard, but they were also healing. I started to understand that I had carried a lot of guilt and shame from my past life, and that I had been punishing myself for things that weren't my fault. "You're a survivor," my therapist, Dr. Chun, told me one afternoon. "But surviving isn't the same as thriving. You need to give yourself permission to be happy." "I'm trying," I said. "It's harder than it sounds." "I know, but you're doing the work. That's what matters." I thought about her words a lot in the weeks that followed. I had spent so long fighting, so long surviving, that I had forgotten what it felt like to simply exist. To enjoy a cup of coffee without worrying about what someone thought of me. To take a walk in the park without looking over my shoulder. To fall asleep without replaying every mistake I had ever made. I was starting to heal. And it felt good that Amy came to visit me one weekend, and we spent the afternoon wandering around a farmer's market in downtown Denver. The sun was warm, the air was crisp, and the stalls were filled with fresh produce and handmade crafts. It was the kind of perfect autumn day that made you forget about all the darkness in the world. "You look happy," Amy said, nudging me with her elbow. "Really happy. I haven't seen you like this in years." "I am happy," I said. "It took a while to get here. But I'm finally here." "Good. Because you deserve it. After everything you went through, you deserve all the happiness in the world." I hugged her, feeling tears prick at my eyes. "Thank you. For everything. For being there when I needed you." "Always," she said. "That's what sisters are for." Later that evening, I got a call from Diane. "Emma, I have some news. The board has decided to promote you to senior strategist. You've been doing incredible work and we want to recognize that." I was stunned. "Senior strategist, Diane, I've only been here for a year." "A year of outstanding performance," she said. "You've brought in new clients, improved our processes, and become a trusted member of the team. You've earned this." I thanked her, feeling a surge of pride that I hadn't felt in a long time. I had worked so hard to get here, and I had done it on my own terms. When I hung up, I called Mark. He answered on the first ring. "You're not going to believe this," I said. "I got promoted. Senior strategist." "Emma, that's amazing." He sounded genuinely thrilled. "We need to celebrate. I'm taking you out to dinner. Your choice. Anywhere you want." "Okay," I said. "But first, I need to tell you something." "What?" "I love you. And I'm ready. Ready for us. Ready for the future. Whatever it brings." "Emma, I love you too. And I'm ready. Let's do this. Together." We went out to dinner that night at a small Italian restaurant I had always wanted to try. The food was amazing, the wine was perfect, and the company was even better. It was the kind of evening I had never allowed myself to have in my past life, always too worried about the cost, the calories, the judgment. But this life was different. This life was mine. As we walked back to my apartment, hand in hand, I thought about everything I had been through. The betrayal at Bullseye. The legal battle with Jessica. The reconciliation with Mark. The promotion. It had been a long, winding road, full of twists and turns that I never could have predicted, but I had made it. I had survived. And more than that, I had thrived. The next morning, I woke up early and went for a walk. The sun was just rising over the mountains, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. I breathed in the crisp autumn air and felt a sense of peace settle over me. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "I'm not done with you. This isn't over. You'll pay for what you did." I stared at the screen, feeling a flicker of fear, but it passed quickly. I had dealt with Jessica before. I had faced her in court and won, and I would face her again if I had to. I typed a response. "I'm not afraid of you. I never was. You can't hurt me anymore. The only person you're hurting is yourself. Get help, Jessica. Get therapy. Move on. Because I already have." I hit send and pocketed my phone. I didn't expect a response, and I didn't need one. I walked back to my apartment, feeling lighter than I had in weeks. The clouds were starting to clear, and the sun was shining bright. It was going to be a beautiful day. I had a new job, a new life, a new sense of purpose, and for the first time in a very long time, I felt like I had finally found my place in the world. Later that day, I sat down and wrote a letter to myself. I wrote about everything I had been through, the death, the rebirth, the fight, the victory. I wrote about the lessons I had learned and the person I had become, and I sealed it in an envelope and tucked it away in a drawer, a reminder of how far I had come. I wasn't the same woman who had died alone in a hospital room, full of regret and bitterness. I was someone new, someone stronger, someone who knew her worth. And I was never going to forget it.